Ladies and gentlemen, now, please take your Bibles and turn to Hebrews chapter 11. And in order to understand Hebrews chapter 11, we must immediately turn to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, and I'm going to begin reading. Wherefore. Now, when you see wherefore is really equal to therefore, okay? Wherefore, therefore, whenever you see those words, then you know that everything that had preceded now is going to be built upon for this next thing. And so, in order to understand that which goes after the wherefore, the therefore, you have to then go back and grab the context, and the context begins in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. But if we really want to be honest about it, the context goes all the way back to Hebrews 1:1, and then in order to understand that, then we have to go back to the context of where we started the entire series, and that is Exodus 25, because that is actually where we are. We began our journey out of Egypt with Passover. The several weeks leading up to Passover, we were in Egypt. We were at the beginning of the book of Exodus. Then we took our journey out of Egypt, beginning at Passover, and then from Passover to Shavuot, we explored the lessons, the crucial, the vital lessons that we learned from when we left Egypt until we got to Mount Sinai, which is on the new moon of the third month. And remember, we left Egypt at the full moon, the 15th day of the first month, and now it is the new moon of the third month that we finally get there. Along the way, we learned some very critical lessons. One of them was the Sabbath. That's just one of the lessons. We learned about the Sabbath before we ever got to Mount Sinai. And we learned that it was a life and death issue with the Almighty. You didn't just go out there and decide that you're going to go out and gather wood and kindle your fire and do work on the Sabbath in blatant violation to what Moses said before we got to Mount Sinai, because he is operating by revelation from heaven, and the man who did it blatantly broke the commandments of the Almighty. He died. This is exactly what Yeshua is telling us. You blatantly break the commandments of the Almighty, you will be told to depart from me. You are out of the kingdom. And so, these shadow pictures are crucial. We cannot just blow by them. After we got to Mount Sinai, then we spent the next several weeks at Mount Sinai, and we are now, after the covenant is made, and it is ratified with the blood of bulls, that the blood is shaken on the scroll, on the altar, and on the people. Now Moses is up in the mountain, and he is told in Exodus 25 that we are going to now build a tabernacle, which is going to be the dwelling place of the Almighty. The first article of furniture that is spoken of, the Ark of the Covenant, which is a representation of the throne of the Almighty upon the earth. And then we went into the detail of how you approach the Almighty on the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, and it is the priest in our place that goes in with the blood of bulls and goats. And without the blood of bulls and goats, he does not enter, or he's a dead man. And then we see through history what had transpired when the Ark of the Covenant was then secreted away in the stone sarcophagus that Solomon had prepared in advance, that Jeremiah, by revelation, put the Ark of the Covenant there, as detailed in the book of Maccabees, which was removed from the King James Version of the 1611 Bible in 1825 by the American and British Bible Societies, so we would not know this. And then we see that when the Ark of the Covenant was hidden away, that how we celebrated Yom Kippur was different during the Second Temple period. And that is when the miracle of the changing of the scarlet ribbon that was put around the neck of the scapegoat would always, year after year, it would turn white when the scapegoat was then cast off the mountain into the valley of Azazel. And then we see that when the death of Yeshua occurred in 28 of the Common Era, after a 70-week ministry, not a 3.5-year ministry, that is completely bogus. And we've got charlatans out there now saying that he had a 3-year ministry because the red heifer had to be 3 years old. Well, the red heifer was burned completely, including its guts and its dung. And to say that Jesus is burned cow dung does not fit well in the prophetic shadow picture of Yeshua as the Lamb of God, the male lamb of the first year. Yeshua is not the cow of God, which takes away the sin of the world. He was not crucified over the Mount of Olives. The dingbat that came up with that was Dr. Ernst Martin. He was laughed out of Jerusalem for that ridiculous thing. There was never a crucifixion that took place over on the Mount of Olives. They happened in the roadbed right outside the Damascus gate. They have found the archaeological evidence is overwhelming. And they want to come up with this, a bunch of fairy tales over there. And who comes up with 3.5-year ministry? Over 300 years after the event, Eusebius, for the first time in history, Eusebius opens his mouth and said Yeshua's ministry was 3.5 years, which is 1/2 of a week, which is simply his interpretation or interpolation in reading into the prophecy of Daniel. Every historian, every Catholic church father before him said that Yeshua's ministry was about 1 year. And all of a sudden, Eusebius comes on the scene and says 3.5 years without one shred of evidence, without being able to quote anyone. And at the same time, then Tertullian said, no, it wasn't 3.5 years, it was 11 years. Tertullian says it's 11 years. Where does he come up with 11 years? The same place that Eusebius came up with 3.5 years. A brain contusion. You can't do that. And now everyone's out there with the same papal bull, 3.5 years, and saying that 3.5 years is already fulfilled, then 3.5 years in the book of Acts, all 7 years, all 70 weeks of Daniel is already fulfilled, and so now the Messiah is reigning upon the earth. But it's not really the Messiah, it's the vicar of Christ, vicariously the Messiah. It's the Pope who is ruling from his throne. So all of you papal pundits out there who want to keep mouthing this 3.5-year ministry or 3-year ministry, you're fools. And you're not fools for Christ's sake. No, you're just plain fools. You're following a fairy tale. I spent my whole life in this. I know, it was before you were born. You have no idea what we've been doing for the last 40 years. Because most of you guys out there, you've been reading the Bible for like 3 or 4 years because you watched one of my videos. Now you're an expert. Okay? No, you're not an expert. I know more about the Gospels. I've forgotten more than you'll ever understand. And I'm not speaking this pridefully. I'm just giving you the facts. Why? Because I spent my years doing it. Why? Because I have been divinely blessed by the Almighty to have years in which I have been in complete seclusion and do nothing but read the Scriptures. And I consider, some people would think that's boredom, and I think it has been a life-changing experience. Now we get into and we see the whole book of Hebrews laid out to where we finally understand what happened and why the scarlet ribbon doesn't turn white anymore. The rabbis say that now good works and prayers and almsgiving replaces the temple service. No, that's their explanation. It's dead wrong. If that could replace the temple service, we wouldn't have needed the temple service. The temple service showed us the coming of the one who would pay the death penalty that we incurred by breaking the blood covenant at Mount Sinai. I'll tell you, the renewal of the covenant finally makes sense. It's just not a messianic term, it's a legal reality that plays out for eternity. We have been redeemed. The death penalty that we owed, one who never broke the covenant paid it in our place, and so it could be renewed with us. And so now, wherefore? What's the wherefore? What's the therefore? Chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for. Of hoped for. See, hope is not a wishful thinking. Hope is something that is a reality, but it's in the future. That's what hope is. When it talks about, people think, that it's the helmet of salvation. No, it's not the helmet of salvation. It's the helmet of the hope of salvation. Because our salvation, our wholeness, is something that happens in the future when the captain of our salvation comes down and changes this mortal body into an immortal body, who changes this dead, molded, corrupted body in the grave into an incorruptible body. That is when we are wholly saved. Until then, we are sealed unto the day of redemption. That's why I really don't like using the word saved and the terminology that's thrown about there. Oh, I went to a Billy Graham crusade and got saved just in case this whole thing about God is really true. Well, I'll tell you, it's really true, okay? But you didn't get saved. You may have gone forward, did a repeat after me prayer, got a Gospel of John, a pat on the rear end, and your so-called ticket to heaven punched, but that is a man-made protocol. That's not in the Bible. So when we talk about hope, faith is the substance of things hoped for. Faith, we believe it. We believe it and we hold on to it against all of of what the physical universe tells us. When we have the promises of God, we hold on to them and we hope for them. Not wishful thinking, we hope and we hang on to it with everything we've got. And that is what faith is. It's substance, it's reality. And we make it reality because we have the promises and we hold on with everything that is there. That is why when we know when the time of trouble comes, when it says, we are told by Yeshua to pray, Our Father in heaven, holy is your name. We sanctify His name, His holy name, Yahovah. And then He says, ask, give us this day our daily bread. And when we ask for that bread, we believe that we have it and we walk out on it. And He will show us where the daily bread is. And that daily bread may not come in a sack of Wonder Bread with 12 essential vitamins and 14 poisons, okay? No. It may come because He tells you where to walk out and what plant to eat. And that is your daily bread. We will depend upon revelation from heaven because He says He will give it to us. He said to pray for it and we will have it. And if we don't get it, then we fast. And we don't whine about it and we don't complain about it. Elijah went 40 days after 2 meals. And neither one of them came from Burger King. He went 40 days. How long can you go? We don't know. But He will give us our daily provision because we have faith. And that faith gives us that substance, that reality. And so it's not something that we have to make up. It's real. For by faith, the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that the things which are seen now were not made of things which do appear. And this is quantum mechanics. This is quantum mechanics. The things that exist are made of things which we cannot see. This table is not solid. These are atoms that then form molecules. And there is space between them. And that's what we are too. It's quantum mechanics that's being explained here. That the things the things that we see are made up of things that are not seen. That is faith. By faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained a witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he, being dead, yet speaks. See, Abel, even though he's dead, yet he speaks. How does he speak? Because by faith. And by faith, when it's by faith, that means that there had to be instructions. They had to have been given instructions for Abel to offer a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain. Because Cain brought of the fruit of his labors, Abel brought of a male lamb of the first year. What do you suppose the Almighty wanted to communicate? Did he want to say that, whatever you do, whatever works you do in your life, that's satisfactory? Because remember, Adam and Hava, they had already disobeyed. Death had entered into the world. Do you think that the Almighty was communicating to us just as he did with Adam and Eve? Remember, what did he provide? They sewed together fig leaves and covered themselves. What did he do to provide a covering? He slew animals. They shed their blood as a covering. What do you think that Cain and Abel were given instructions? By faith, Abel did what he was instructed, and by it, he even speaks to us now because it shows that as he offered a sinless lamb as an offering, that was the picture of the coming Messiah. And that's how he, being yet dead, now speaks to us. Now, I want to go back and read now the rest of 12:1. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race which is set before us. So great a cloud of witnesses. These are not disembodied spirits floating around in the heavens, okay? That's not what it's talking about. We go back, therefore, let's see our first example. It's Abel. He's dead. His blood crying out from the ground for vengeance. He's dead, but yet he speaks. How does he speak? Through his actions, living by faith is a testimony and speaks to us today. No, he's not out there floating around. No, your grandfather is not, looking down from heaven down upon you. No, we don't have your great-grandfather helping you out in a football game and, tackling the opponent as a ghost so that you can make a touchdown. Okay? We don't have our ancestors helping us out there. They're dead until the resurrection. But they are the witnesses that have gone before us. These men, as we start with Abel, being dead, yet he now speaks. And we see this throughout history, that those who are obedient to the Almighty, they leave a legacy of believing. I shared this last week. I'm going to share it right now. In our neighborhood, Mr. Letourneau, he was really wanting to tithe, and he did. But it cost him so much to tithe. He'd had so little, but he still gave a tenth of everything, and he prayed. When he had nothing, he prayed and said, one day, I want to live on 10% and to tithe 90%. And the Almighty gave him a vision of big equipment that would have a diesel engine, run a generator that would then power individual electric motors on individual wheels. That became the big earth-moving equipment. He became so filthy rich, he gave away over 90% of everything he made. Then he came over to Israel and bought up the land in Perea, Israel, where I live. I didn't even know it till I moved in. And then he built houses for Jews to return to the land of Israel. And so Jews coming from all over the world, Russia and all over, lived in these little homes that Letourneau built. And now he's dead, And yet in that community is the highest concentration of Messianic Jews in the entire nation of Israel. Not because LeTourneau brought Messianic Jews in there. It's because LeTourneau, in his action, in giving, in tithing, in praying that he would be able to substantially advance the kingdom of heaven, now his testimony lives in that land, and every Jew, every Orthodox that lives in that community knows that LeTourneau did that. And my neighbor, she is not Messianic, but she went to a realtor who lived down the street, and she said, I want you to find one of your people to live in my new house that I spent 9 years building. I met that realtor over at Nazareth Village. She said, we told her what I was doing. She said, follow me. I want you to follow me. I have something for you. She took us up to that property. We sat there, Judith and I, and we prayed, and we knew this is the place the Almighty had been preparing for 9 years for us. And what set it all in motion? LeTourneau. Because this woman, being an Orthodox Jew, said, I want your people. I want Messianic Jews in my house, because I have seen the blessing of the Almighty on their lives because they obey the Scripture. They obey the Torah. Okay, here we are back in Hebrews 11, chapter 11. We're finding out why the therefore is therefore about this great cloud of witnesses. And we continue on with this great cloud of witnesses. By faith, verse 5, Enoch was translated, that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased God. As it tells us in the Torah, that he walked with God, and he was not because God took him. Now, I've heard, and as a matter of fact, in a theological cemetery, I was told that Enoch really did die, and that he just did not see death with his own eyes, okay? And that he didn't really die, or he did really die because the Scripture says that for it is appointed unto man once to die, and after the death, the judgment. And so by that proof text, that proves that Enoch had to die. Well, I say hakifati in Arabic, hakifati. You know, just because you have this verse that says it's appointed unto man once to die and after that the judgment, it's talking about mankind in general. Everybody dies, everyone lives, everyone dies, and after that the judgment. Enoch was different. He pleased the Almighty, and he took him. He didn't see death. No, it's not that he didn't see anybody die. Because we don't have any record of him seeing somebody die. Oh, that's insane. That is the goofiest thing. You have to go to a theological cemetery to learn something that stupid, okay? No, he didn't see death because he didn't die. He was then taken up before the throne in heaven. And then verse 6, one of my favorite verses. This is statement of faith right here. Without faith it is impossible to please him. Yah. For he that comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing that can be communicated in this whole thing, is this reality. God is. And he rewards those who diligently seek him. This is what I put on my website for years. This is my statement of faith. Oh, and people want this, they want that. They want all these things that divide people, okay? That's what they're looking at, a statement of faith. They're looking and say, okay, well, I don't have to listen to what this person says because because he doesn't believe this or he does believe that or whatever. They just look to put you in a box. That's what they're looking for. God is not in a box. He is. He rewards those who diligently seek him, and that's all we can do in this life. We can diligently seek him. See, it was Thomas Jefferson who said that as it says in the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, it says that We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal in that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these rights, among them, it's not all of them, and he doesn't even enumerate the responsibilities that come with the rights. But he says among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Jefferson said that the pursuit of happiness is every individual's right to pursue God's purpose in their life. That's a pursuit of happiness. That's the only way you will find happiness, is to find God's plan, His reality for you in this life. It's Hebrews 11:6. We search for Him, we obey Him, and He rewards us. That's one thing I can tell you after a lifetime of being on this track, and since I was 17, very seriously, that God really does reward you if you will diligently seek Him. That's one thing I can assure you. Have faith in that. If there's anything I say that you can believe me when I say if you diligently search for Him and seek Him with your whole heart, He will reward you. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not yet seen, moved with fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness, which is the righteousness which is by faith. See, righteousness comes by faith. Because righteousness is our acts. We act on what the Almighty says. That obedience is righteousness in His eyes. If you deliberately disobey Him, that is sin. If you consciously obey Him when it costs you something, He looks down from heaven and says, here is my son, here is my daughter. I am going to reward them. And I'm not going to do it right away. I'm going to let this thing drag out, and it's going to look like, sometimes it's going to look like I'm not even there. And they are going to come to this point, they're going to get so low in life, and then all of a sudden I'm going to come through, and they are going to then realize that they have been in my will all along. They have been obedient. They have not turned their back on me. They have not cowered. They have stood strong, and now they're going to see that I have been leading them all along the way. I have now woven their life together in a plan that is so intricate, it's going to completely blow their mind. That is one of the greatest treasures, to go through times where His face is hidden from us, that we don't see Him, and it looks like, is He really there? And then after 4 years, we get a job, and we know, He is there. He has not forsaken us. 4 years without a job, and you're still alive. Did you get to read the Bible during that time at all?
I spent a lot of time in a tent.
What's that?
Spent a lot of time in a tent.
That's right, spent a lot of time in a tent. I spent time in a tent myself. People, until you're homeless, you haven't experienced real joy of living in a house. I have. You have. And we're still alive, aren't we? Amen. Continue on. By faith, Abraham. The cloud of witnesses continues on. Where's Noah? Is he floating around helping us on a daily basis? I would say if he is, get on the stick, Noah, because, where's all the help? If all my dead ancestors, all the compilation of, 40 generations of ancestors are up there floating around and it's all come down to me, come on, please, a little help here. No, they're dead. But their testimony, we are the culmination of all the generations that have gone before us. It's not just generational curses, there are generational blessings. My daughters and my granddaughters, I'll tell you, they live with blessings that come from my great-great-grandparents standing on the Word and being horseback riding, circuit riding Methodist preachers. And it keeps on coming down the line, and they are blessed incredibly blessed. My family doesn't live under generational curses. They live under generational blessings. Let's get out of this generational curse. Okay, break the curse. Let's move on. Let's do something in life. Goodness. By faith, Abraham, when he is called to go into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, he obeyed. He went out. He had no idea where he was going. He was told to come out of Babylon. He crossed over the Euphrates River and no idea where he was going. And finally he was told, you go into this land, into the land where the Canaanites, these sex perverts who have been cursed by Noah, where they're dwelling. And he said, you're not going to get the land. Your son's not going to get the land. Your descendants, generations from now, after being in Egypt, are going to come out. They're going to inherit this land when the sins of this people finally has stunk so bad, when their sexual perversion is at such a degrading place, when they have sex slave markets, child prostitution rings. I am going to send you in to wipe out this vile, sex perverted people and wipe them off the face of the earth, because they must be destroyed. Otherwise, the entire earth will be contaminated with their syphilis, with their AIDS, and all these other diseases, because this is what the Almighty said. You're going to clean this land up, and you are not going to succumb to any of the perversions of these pagan sun worshipers. Abraham did not see the promise in his own lifetime, but by faith, Abraham took a stand, and the Almighty blessed him. And Israel today is living under the generational blessing. Thank you. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles. Ha ha, here we go, brother. Dwelling in tents, right there, with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which has a builder whose foundations are built by God. Through faith also, Sarah received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past her age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. She laughed him at first, but then she believed, and she then, impossible to have a child, but she had a child. Therefore sprang there even one, and him as good as dead, so many as of the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the sea shore innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and they were persuaded of them. They embraced them. They confessed that they were but strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek another country, another nation, of the kingdom of heaven. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country of which they'd come out, like if Abraham had just thought about, staying in Babylon, then, he would have only turned around and gone right back, because, he had it so much better in Babylon than living in a tent among a bunch of sex perverts. Honestly, that's what they were. By the time a sin, a gross sin that is so sick and so perverse that we can't even describe it, it's a shame to even speak of what sodomy really is, and yet the city is named Sodom, and that sin is named sodomy. That is some gross, sick, twisted stuff, people. And as Shaul says in Romans, it's a sin. It's a shame to even speak of those things. Just makes your skin crawl. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, he offered up Isaac. He was tried. He was tested. The Almighty said, offer up your son on the mountains of Moriah. Take him to Mount Moriah, the mountain where Yah will be our Moreh. For in the mountain will be seen the way of salvation. He took his son up there. He built an altar in stone. He bound his son to the wood of the sacrifice. when his son had asked him plainly, Father, we have the wood of the sacrifice, we got the fire, we got everything we need, where's the lamb? Abraham replied, God will provide himself a lamb, you follow me. Now he's got Isaac bound up, this adult male who could probably whip the old man. He's got him bound up, he gets ready to plunge the knife in him, and then the Almighty sends his angel and says, stop! It was not some kind of sick joke. Why? Because instead of the death of his son, a male lamb of the first year with his horns caught in the thicket of thorns, a crown of thorns was provided in the place of the son. It's a shadow picture. By faith, Abraham did this shadow picture. And that's why Moses didn't go into the promised land. He was told to strike the rock once, and then 40 years later he was told to declare the rock. But instead, he got all hot, he got all furious, he got all angry, and he took a rod and he smote it again. The Almighty said, that's it. Aaron and Moses, you don't go in. Aaron, you're dead. They buried Aaron. Then he took Moses up the mountain and says, you're not going to the land. Take a look. Bam, you're dead. Why? He broke the prophetic shadow picture, because that rock that was to be declared is the Messiah. Smitten once, and afterward declared. And that's why those who tread dangerously, and they want to come up against what I'm teaching and say Yeshua's ministry was 3.5 years and come up with the red cow crap burned outside the city. Man, I'll tell you, you're treading on thin ice. Thin ice. If you don't get to go in the promised land, don't blame me, because you got all cocky and decide, hey, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to take Rood out before his book comes out. Yeah, we got those guys out there. It's not Lashon Hara. That is speaking the truth. Just like, what did Paul say, Shaul say to the Galatians, who are being led away by those Pharisees who became believers, who were telling Gentiles that they had to be circumcised? He said, I wish that those who are troubling you would be cut off. What is he talking about? Cutting off what? Circumcising a little bit lower? What's he talking about? Oh, no, we can't say that. We got to be religious. No, he's saying, I wish they were completely cut off. Those who are trying to tell you, Gentiles, that you had to be circumcised. Castrated is what he's saying. Just because they're troubling him. So don't give me a hard time, because I'm giving false teachers and false prophets out there a hard time. I have earned the right to give them a hard time. I've stayed faithful. So I say, if you take a stand and you're speaking the truth, then let the whatever drop where it falls, I guess. Okay. Accounting, moving on, verse 19. Accounting that God was able to raise him up. See, he believed that if he sacrificed his son, because this was his only son. And now look at Abraham's really old now. Abraham's 120 years old. His wife is 119 years old. Okay, this is over with. If he kills this child, this is the child of promise, not Ishmael. This is not the child of promise, that the Almighty is able to raise him from the dead. This is what he believed. And so he took that knife in his hand by faith. But the Almighty didn't tell Abraham the whole thing. He just said, obey. Abraham did it because he believed the Almighty could raise him from the dead. And what is that a picture of? The Messiah who was raised from the dead. If Abraham believed that his son could be raised, then can we not believe that Yeshua can be raised? If we believe that Sarah, who was dead in her womb, can have a child, can we believe that a woman who has never known a man can conceive? It's by faith. But this faith is not without substance. This faith is because the Almighty created the heavens and the earth, and nothing is beyond His ability to make happen. By faith, Isaac blessed Yaakov and Esau concerning things to come. By faith, Yaakov, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Yosef, and he worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandments concerning his bones. He believed that they would leave. Take my bones with you when you go back into the land. He knew it would happen. It is prophesied. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of of the king's commandment. See, the king was a pagan sun god worshiper. Okay? They weren't afraid of the pagan sun god worshiping king. Nor are we to be afraid of a pagan moon god worshiping president. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for his lifetime, for a season. It would have been his whole life. Live in the courts of Pharaoh. Moses, Moses. Opening of, the Ten Commandments. He's coming into the city. Moses, Moses. Esteeming the reproach of Messiah greater than the treasures in Egypt. For he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the president. For he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Through faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. See, any Israelite who didn't put the blood on the doorposts and lintels died that night. And that's why we're seeing the spiritual death of everyone who continues to put the blood on the doorposts and lintels, because he said, don't do it. You do it in Jerusalem. You do it at Shiloh, then you do it at Jerusalem. You never do it in the gates of your own city. You disobey him and think that you are now holy Jerusalem. Yeah, you'll be dropping acid and sharing your neighbor's wife before long. You will die spiritually because you're disobedient. And that's what's going on out there. I mean, there are cults growing up all over America. Hebrew roots cults, Messianic cults, Jewish Messianic cults, who say that the Gentiles can't be full members of the body of Messiah. They're only associate members. That's a Messianic Jewish cult. Those who call the congregation leader rabbi, that's a cult. You should have said, don't do it. It's a cult. If the guy's up there and he calls himself rabbi, or people call him rabbi, run, don't walk to the nearest exit. Before you long, you'll be dropping acid and sharing your wife with the rabbi, the great one. And don't tell me it doesn't happen. Oh, we got one hotshot rabbi. I don't know how many wives he's got now down in Florida. Weird. It gets weird, people. Let's follow Yeshua, okay? Let's just keep it real simple. Follow the prophet and we can't go wrong. If he's not the prophet, well, he is. He just plain is. By faith, we know he is. By faith, they passed through the Red Sea on dry ground, which the Egyptians essayed to do. They were trying to do. They all drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down when they were compassed about 7 days. By faith, the harlot, Rahab, perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. Put the red cord out the window, and that tower didn't fall. They didn't destroy Rahab and her family, because by faith she knew that these people were ordained by the Most High, and they owned the land. And everyone who stands in Israel's way now, including the United States of America. Because right now, Netanyahu has had to speak out and say the United States is not doing their job, and if we have to whack Iran, we'll whack Iran. But, the United States has been the one who says, don't do it, we'll take care of them. Well, that's before you've got a moon god kissing Muslim in the White House. "4,000 years ago, the creator of the heavens and the earth made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. All the land from the Euphrates to the Nile, which takes up half of Iraq, belongs to the sons of Israel." Shock waves are going to shake the earth when heaven reaches down to fulfill that promise, and every nation that stands against that covenant is going to find themselves on the battlefield against the Almighty. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to let our voice be heard. We need to let it be known, because, after this next election, we may not be on YouTube anymore. We may not be broadcasting. There may be no freedom left in America after this next presidential election. You think they're going to let me keep on saying this kind of stuff? Yeah, right. If you think that, you don't understand Babylon. Here we go. "And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me in the last 3 minutes and 8 seconds to speak of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the enemies of the aliens. Women received their dead to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trials of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover of bonds and imprisonments. They were stoned, they were cut in half with rusty lumberjack saws, as Isaiah was down the Kidron Valley. They were tempted, were slain with a sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, which were then laced around them, wet skins that sent out in the desert, that the hot desert sun then crushed them to where they couldn't breathe, and they suffocated to death under the hot desert sun, not willing to recant and live a lie. They were destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom this world is not worthy. That's why in the kingdom they will have an eternal reward. They wandered in deserts and mountains and dens and caves of the earth, and these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, but God, having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. See, we have been given this great cloud of witnesses beforehand to give us the courage to have hope and to have the substance of faith that will then direct our paths and will cause us to walk with fire, with enthusiasm, to live a selfless life, to give it all in this life, so at the end we can say we have spent it all. We have run the race, we've hit the finish line, and I am ready to die because there's not 1 ounce left in me. The helmet of the hope of salvation. What guards our mind is the hope of our future salvation. That is that faith, which gives us the shield to block out all of the fiery darts of the enemy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been called to greatness. We have been called to do something that no other generation has ever been able to do, and that is to get the word, the gospel of truth, out to the nations of the world. We have been given the technology. We have an opportunity in this day and time we have never ever had before. And if we don't do it, then don't blame the Messiah if he says, "Bad job. You had every opportunity. You wouldn't get off your dead donkey." which is the one that died when Samson ripped his jawbone out of him and killed 1,000 Philistines. We need to get off our dead donkeys and live as if this is our last life.
For more information, visit www.aroodawakening.tv or call 1-888-766-3610.